Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and in this video I want to show you what I usually do to prepare myself when I'm flying to a new airport that I haven't flown to before. Right now we are shortly before starting our descent towards Cagliari Airport on Sardinia, where I haven't really flown in the last 5 years, so it kinda counts as a new airport for me. So let's have a look into the general things that I tend to do to prepare myself for a new airport. Now we start with an overview. Most airports do have some sort of a radar minima chart available, which gives you a good overview of the entire area. Unfortunately, that isn't the case for this airport, so the star chart will have to do. But as we can see, Cagliari is located in that little bay down here, and we have some high terrain both to the west and to the east of the airport. If we look at the color intervals on the top of the chart there, we can see we've got 4,000 feet, which is what this terrain is, and the highest point in the area, 3,920 feet. So we've got some roundabout 4,000 feet high mountains, both to the left and to the right of Cagliari Airport, in a distance of about 10 miles from the field. The next thing we can go to then is what does the airport actually look like, and we're going to do that by going into the ground charts over here. So looking at the airport itself, get an idea of what the general runway looks like. Also get an idea, we are landing on runway 32 today. Looking at the weather, that's pretty much the wind directly onto runway 32, as we can see 320 at 6 knots. So what we are looking into here is landing on runway 32, we're going to fly over the shoreline, and then the apron and pretty much anything civil is on the right hand side of the runway, so we can already put ourselves into the mindset for that, and the left side basically is the military part of the airport. Then, quick look down here, what do we have available? We have high intensity runway lighting, centerline lighting, and we have a 3-degree PAPI available on runway 14, and on runway 32, high intensity runway lighting, centerline lighting, high intensity approach light system, and a PAPI, and we do have a glide slope that touches the runway at 2,459 meters beyond the runway threshold, on a 2,800 meter runway, so it's basically a 350 meters displaced aiming point on the runway, which is ICAO standard. Also, width of the runway 45 meters down here, which is something that we also want to take into account. And for the takeoff, RVR 550 meters. Alright, so now that we have a general idea of what the airport looks like, we need to get a general idea of the local regulations, and in order to get that, we will have to read the airport briefing. Now, the charts are always going to have these general sections where you have an airport briefing available, provided there is one. In real life, we would also get an airport briefing from a company where the company would write down some specific areas where they want focus on, or maybe shortcuts that you can expect from air traffic control to plan ahead for them. Also included normally is the noise abatement procedure and stuff like that. However, let's have a look into what we have available over here, starting in the general charts. We have some nighttime flying restrictions, run-up tests, that's not really interesting for us, however this one is. Auxiliary power units. Use of APU is allowed 5 minutes before EOBT only for engine startup. If ground generator units are not available, APU can start it up to 60 minutes before EOBT and switched off 20 minutes after arrival. The Airport Civil Aviation Authority might clear the use of APU for a longer period. So this is a particularly interesting thing that we want to inform ourselves about on pretty much any airport where we fly to. When can we use the APU? Because most airports do have APU usage restrictions in place. On this one, 20 minutes after arrival, 5 minutes before EOBT, and the airport authority might clear the use of APU for a longer period. That may be particularly interesting in summertime when it's very hot outside and when there is no ground air conditioning unit available. So then we could contact the airport authority to get an allowance to use the APU. Going on from there, we have some information about low visibility operations. Now, looking at today's weather in CAF, that's not really interesting for us. Runway operations, only runway 32 is approved for Cat 1 operations, okay. And ground movement, that's again low visibility, so not all that interesting for us. So let's go ahead then. We have the next page that we quickly want to check. And on here we have taxi procedures. Okay, that is something that is interesting for us, because there are some airports where they have some predefined standard taxi routings. Examples would include Rome Fiumicino, where you have the standard 1 routing after landing, and for example Palma de Mallorca. An example for that, the standard 1 in Rome means you vacate the runway, you join a certain taxiway, you taxi along a certain route, and you monitor the ground frequency. And all that ATC is going to tell you after you land is Aberlin 123, standard 1, bye-bye. Another example is Palma de Mallorca Airport, where they have a standard taxiway system, and where your taxi clearance is only going to be like Aberlin 123, taxi, holding point 24 right, via Juliet. And the remainder of the taxiways you have to come up with yourself, and that stuff is all going to be part of the general charts over here. So going on from there, we have seen this stuff, and what's interesting here for us as well is movement on April in general. Only 1 aircraft movement at a time is allowed. Arriving aircraft will normally have taxiing priority over departing aircraft. So that's something we keep in mind as well. Okay, then we can go on to the departure and arrival briefings. And for the arrival, we have some speed restrictions. So over here we can see 200 knots maximum starting the turn to intercept the localizer or approach radial in case of VOR. And 180 knots completing the interception at a distance of 8 miles from the threshold, and then 160 knots at a distance from 5 miles from the runway threshold. So that's something to keep in mind for us as well. Okay, communications failure, also something to have a little look into. And we can already prepare for our departure as well, so we have some de-icing information, not really interesting for us, responsibilities and de-icing procedures down here. Then we can go on to the last chart of the preparation over here. Now this is a little bit more interesting for us over here. Pilot shall request startup clearance 5 minutes before ready to start engines, handling operations completed, and just something to keep in mind. Noise abatement procedure, runway 32. Pilot shall apply NADP 1, so we keep that in mind for our departure later on. And they are using minimum runway occupancy procedures over here. Okay, now that we have the general stuff in mind that we need to know for the airport, we can look into the arrival that we're going to fly. The important thing here, the arrival is going to take us over at the mountains, down to the coastline, and then we are going to fly the ILS approach out of Carbonara VOR. So basically, over the mountains, onto the coastline, and then arriving through the bay. Missed approach, also a good idea to get a good look into. Basically goes through the valley over here and stays clear of the mountains. Alright, so that is the kind of stuff that I would look into when I'm preparing for a new airport. In short, what does the general area look like, which we have from the start chart over here. In other cases there might also be other sources like a radar minimum chart available, which is always good to look at. Then the next thing, how does the airport look like? What restrictions are there in place? In other words, read the general charts. And then we look into the approach that we're going to fly and the missed approach, and do the planning that we need. For example, where are we going to plan to vacate the runway and what taxi routing will we expect? Alright, that is pretty much the important stuff to prepare for when you are flying to a new airport. I hope you found this one useful, and if you did, then do let me know in the comments below. As always, like, comment and subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, you can do that using the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below, or by becoming a channel member, which is going to give you exclusive early access to new videos before they are released for everyone else. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again, hopefully very soon.